people. Hi, everybody. We're just getting started here. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, welcome. We're so excited to have you on here. Hello, everybody. So we asked this before about, we'd love for you guys, if anybody's streaming in from super far away, or if you're a Denver native, you're more than welcome to say where you're from. We love being able to expand beyond our confines of Denver, making this a more, how do you say it, a less, it's still a local store, but making it like a huge national store. So hi, oh, thanks for coming to visit the store. Oh, Atlanta, that's awesome. Wow. Detroit, wow. Oh my goodness, look at all these amazing people. This is amazing. I just said that 7 times, but it's fine. Kansas, Denver, representing. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for joining us. Singapore, what? Pennsylvania, this is amazing. Boston, yay, we're lucky to have you too. Oh, these are so great. This is amazing. Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, my family's from Florida. Not Jacksonville, Tallahassee, but still, more Florida. That's awesome. Kentucky, Philadelphia. Is that the Liberty Bell? Yes, it is. That's great. Or at least a bell emoji. That's fun. San Antonio, Steamboat Springs, more Colorado. Yay. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm going to just give a quick introduction, and then I'm going to invite Jennifer on to join us. I just want to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on here at Tattered Cover. So for those of you who are in Colorado, you know that the stay-at-home order has been lifted. However, we are still closed, and we have not opened up for curbside pickup or anything like that. We're still doing everything through our website, ordering that way. Right now, that's the best thing for us. We're trying to work out a variety of different ways to be able to get the books to you guys. Our phones are still closed, and curbside pickup is still closed. However, our website is open Tuesdays 10 a.m. till Saturdays at 5 p.m. And so that way, that weekend gives us a little bit of time to catch up on your orders. Thank you guys so much for your plethora of orders. Thank you for your continued support, for supporting local independent bookstores. It just means so much to us. You don't even understand. It's really helping us out. Thank you for supporting local businesses. It truly means the world to us to be able to keep doing this and sharing stories. And because of your orders, we were able to continue doing virtual events and continuing to stay open. So thank you for that. You know, one of the reasons that we're doing this, and we say this on every live stream that we do, but here at Tattered Cover, we firmly believe that art is a survival resource. And unfortunately, art is something that gets very easily cut. It's often the first thing to go, even though that's why we are, that's why we're still here and still doing this. It's something that we are going to. You know, people are reading, people are consuming all different types of media. And so it's art that we're turning to for comfort and empathy in these moments. And we just want to be here to affirm this creative work and say that it's essential and elevate it in the best way that we can. It's always going to be our top priority. You know, these authors that we've chosen have been chosen specifically because we love their work and we know that you love their work. And it's something that we want to share and give them platforms to be able to do that even in this crazy time. Because it's not easy to have a book release right now. I'll be honest with you. You know, and Tattered Cover is a community space. And even though that we're not in our physical space right now, we are moving on to be a virtual community, and we're just really happy that you guys are choosing to be part of that today. So if you want to continue being a part of our virtual community, you can always sign up for our newsletters via email and check out the upcoming virtual events that we have. We have Amy Meyerson, who's the author of The Imperfects. Her book also comes out tomorrow, and we're going to be having her on Wednesday, May 6th at 5 p.m. That's also going to be on Instagram. And a couple Wednesdays from now, on Wednesday, May 27th, we're going to be having a Romance for the Ages panel with Robin Carr, Susan Mallory, and Julia London on Wednesday, May 27th at 5 p.m. And that's going to be on YouTube. And I got to tell you guys, that is a panel that is amazing, and we're only going to to be able to do it because we're doing it virtually. And so it's going to be really exciting and wonderful. I'm personally a romance fan, and I'm so excited. I'm also very stoked to be in conversation with this author today. On a personal note, my mother called me when we announced this one, and she was like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to be in conversation with Jennifer Weiner? I'm so jealous." So that was a really fun moment for me as well. As you guys know, Jennifer is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of 17 novels, including Good in Bed, The Littlest, Bigfoot, and her essay collection, Hungry Heart, Adventures in Life, Love, and Writing, which is my personal favorite of hers. Except I will be honest and say Big Summer, which I finished this morning, may take the cake, guys. It is one of her best books yet. There's jaw-dropping moments. It's amazing and fun. It's wonderful. She's also a graduate of Princeton University and a contributor to the New York Times opinion section. Jennifer lives with her family in Philadelphia, and you can always be in contact with her and visit her on jenniferweiner.com. It is my honor to invite her now to be a part of this live stream. So let me see here and get a second. Let's see if I can get her on there. Oh no, it says she's unable to join. Let's see here. Let's fix this. We're going to come in and try this again. Here she goes. We're waiting for her to come on. Here she is.
I'm here. Hello. Oh my God, it's my giant head. Wait.
You can reset. It's okay. We're all trying to learn angles and
nobody wants to see that much of me.
I don't think that's true, but thank you so much for joining us. This is amazing to have you.
Oh my God, I'm delighted to be here. The Tattered Cover is one of my all-time favorite bookstores. I love visiting you guys whenever I'm out that way, like when I could leave the house in the before. Yes. And I'm so happy to be doing this. This is really great.
I like I said before in the intro, my mother was just over the moon. Like, my mother supports a lot of things that I do, but this one, she went out of her way to call me and was like, "I'm so jealous of you, and I'm so jealous you got to read her book ahead of time," which, like I said, I finished this morning, and it is so good. Big Summer, which comes out tomorrow. Is wonderful. Look at, you have a cover. I only have my iPad, so I don't have it. Yay!
Publicist is watching. I got to pimp the product.
Absolutely. Make the publisher happy. It's a great cover you have too.
Beautiful. Like, I mean, I've had covers that I've loved, and I've had covers that I was a little more meh about. And this one I love. I really think they nailed it. I'm so happy.
Yay. Well, I would love it if we could start with you giving us maybe a little bit of a summary of what Big Summer's about.
Yes. Okay. So Big Summer is the story of a young woman named Daphne who is in her 20s. She lives in New York City, and she's friends with this woman who is basically Ivanka Trump. She is rich, beautiful, well-connected, gorgeous, and they have this kind of frenemy thing going on. It's a little... When we meet Daphne, she's in New York. She is just starting to launch her life as an Instagram influencer, as a plus-size Instagram influencer. And Drew, this awful friend who she hasn't spoken to in a couple of years, waltzes back into her life and says, "I'm getting married and I need you to be there, and you're the best friend I ever had, and I can't walk down the aisle without you." And Daphne, kind of in spite of herself, figures like, hey, it's a free trip to Cape Cod and I'll get some nice pictures for the gram.
Absolutely.
And she goes to do it. And big things happen, I will say, in Cape Cod. And it's a story about, it's about friendship. It's about love. It's about envy. It's about families. It's about body image. It's about finding yourself and figuring out who you are, and all that stuff that we do in our 20s that I can barely remember because I'm like a crone at this point. But
not at the slightest.
My 12-year-old did my makeup. It's the only reason. It's not like the crypt keeper in here.
No, she actually did a great job. I look like a ghost. I can't get any lighting correctly that isn't like just makes me vampirically white. So you look wonderful. And that's such a great description of it because, you know, like I said, having read this book and just kind of diving right into it, you know, you have such an interesting commentary on social media, which really is woven throughout the whole story. And I'd love to know, did you do any research into like the business side of social media? You know, because that sort of business side of it, while a lot of us have, I mean, my grandmother has an Instagram, like so many people are hooked on social media. Not a lot of people know about the business side. What research did you start with?
I found an influencer. I found a young woman in her 20s who's a plus size influencer. She came to one of my readings and I said, I am writing a book about someone like you. Can I ask you a few questions? And that turned into like this 3-hour like marathon interview where I really learned the nuts and bolts of what it means to be an influencer, because I had no idea. Like I figured like somebody sends you a dress and you take a picture of yourself in the dress and then the place sells the dresses and you get money. And it is a lot more complicated than that. And it is very, very hard to make any kind of real money. Like the people at the very, very tippy top of the pyramid make a fortune. And then there's like a whole mass of people who are maybe making like a couple $1,000 a year and working very, very hard to get that money. So, you know, and then I learned all about like the Instagram boyfriend, who is the guy who all he does is take his girlfriend's pictures. So
Yes.
On Instagram, it's like a whole thing. And I learned so much, and Jesus, I'm glad I'm not in my 20s anymore. Like, I don't know how you people are doing it. Like respect.
We don't either.
To the 20 somethings.
Well, thank you for that. But like I said, it was just something that was so well done throughout the book. You know, not only the business side of it, but just how it was a constant in their lives. You know, we read a lot of books that always try and find a way to take out technology or take out, you know, you think that all of Shakespeare's plays would be solved if they had cell phones. So right. You did such a great job of interweaving it into their natural lives. I'm curious, what do you find attractive about social media that made you want to write about it, made you want to have a main character who had this as a goal, as an aspiration in her life?
So I knew that this story was going to be about a young woman. I've written about women at different stages of their lives, but I really like coming back to those characters in their 20s because there's so many big decisions that are ahead of you. It's such a tender time in your life and everything feels big and momentous. And then I had to say, okay, well, what is different about this generation of 20 somethings? What do they have that I didn't? And the answer obviously is the internet. And I wanted to think about the way that all of us, but I think especially a generation that's, you know, extremely online,
right?
All of us are kind of living two lives, right? There's the real life, the real messy, imperfect, you know, yelling at your husband and your kids won't pick up after themselves. Like there's that life. And then there's the life that we're all performing on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Snapchat, which is very, very, and so I wanted to talk about those divides, sort of the public, the private, the real and authentic versus the artificial and performed, all of that stuff. And of course, you know, the internet almost ended up as a character in the book because of that.
Yes, it really, really does. And yeah, like I said, it was just a really excellent, you just did a really great job weaving it in. And I remember reading it and being like, yes, see, this is how you write a story with technology, modern technology at the front of it. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely. So one of the things too that you touched on was that the book, Daphne is a plus size influencer. And, you know, it really touches on fat culture and the movement to reclaim the word fat as not an insult and body image. And it, you know, you have this flashback that goes into how those internal saboteurs came into her life. And, you know, I'm curious as to, you know, what do you hope that people take away from seeing Daphne at the forefront of this book and her as a leading lady when she would typically be a secondary character?
Exactly. See, that's the thing. Okay. So, you know, every writer can give you that quote from Toni Morrison. If the book you need to read isn't on the shelf, then you have to go write it. Okay. When I was a young woman, the only fat characters that you ever saw in fiction were either funny best friends or zany sidekicks, or they existed to lose weight. That was their plot. That was their point.
Yeah.
And that didn't line up with what I saw in real life because, you know, there are larger people all around us and they're living really, you know, fulfilling lives. And I'm like, why are people who look like me always the punchline? You know, like, why is it always, oh God, do you guys remember in the first Scream movie and Marissa Jarrett Whittaker she dies in like the first 5 minutes because the garage door is going down and she's too fat to get out from under it and she gets stuck and she gets crushed and she dies. And I'm like, really? Like that's what fat girls are here for? So when I was a young woman, that was the book that I needed on the shelf. I needed a book that had a character who looked like me, who got a happy ending and who didn't have to change in order to get there. And I think it's become a little bit of like a crusade or a mission for me. Like I always want to put those women in my stories and I always want them to be the heroes of their own journey, the heroes of their own lives.
Yeah, I really liked Daphne as a heroine. I thought she was clever and sassy, and yet she had great faults too that just made her very, very relatable.
Yes.
And I'm sure that all of the readers will love her as well. You know, I'm curious about what your process is when developing characters. You know, you talked about wanting to put these women at the forefront and be the heroes of their own story, you know, but how do you develop these characters? Where do they just pop into your heads and take over your computer?
Well, I mean, some of them come a little more easily than others. And I will say that Daphne arrived, I think, more fully formed than a lot of my other protagonists. And I don't know if it's that, you know, she was like I was when I was in my 20s, or if it's now that I have daughters. I have an almost 17-year-old and I have a 12-year-old. So they're like approaching that age. Or, you know, is it just that I read so much about influencers and about young women and about, you know, this particular moment in the culture that Daphne just felt very real to me, like right from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, but I sort of thought about like, okay, you know, what is it like to grow up in New York City? And what is it like to be on a scholarship at this like very, very fancy private school where there are rich kids and famous kids and all of that? And, you know, her father's a teacher at this school. So she's like, obviously on financial aid. It's not a secret. You know, it's never a secret. I mean,
no.
That was really interesting to write about, the idea that like we try to protect kids from certain truths. And of course they know everything.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, but you know, it's just, I mean, it's a lot of imagining and asking what if, and then just sort of taking what I know about myself, about my kids, about women I know, and just putting it in there.
And then, well, I want to take that same question and kind of apply it to Drew too, because while you have this great protagonist in Daphne, Drew comes in and you talk about this frenemy relationship, and it really is this, for lack of a better word, toxic friendship. And but again, you know, you find yourself having sympathetic moments for Drew. What made you want to make her more than just the typical Regina George mean girl?
You know, so that was interesting. If Daphne came to me fully formed, I would say that Drew is the character who changed and developed the most as the story went along. And I joked at the beginning, I said, like, she's basically Ivanka Trump.
Right.
I thought about, like, okay, what must it be like if you are the daughter of this incredibly powerful man and you've sort of been told that your job is to be beautiful, and, you know, and maybe you want more than that from yourself. You want more than what your father is giving you. This ended up being very much a book about fathers and daughters in a way that I kind of didn't see coming, right?
But, yes. Now that you said it, yes.
So there's Daphne, you know, and it's also a book about envy. Okay, so here is Daphne. For sure. And toxic, like you, toxicity. I think there is a strong thread of toxicity sort of woven into the relationship that these two women have. So here is Daphne, who is this sort of, you know, she is the fat best friend when we see her in high school. Like, she's Drew's sidekick. She's her spear carrier. She's the one who does Drew's bidding and breaks up with guys on Drew's behalf and does Drew's homework and covers for her, and has sort of willingly accepted that role because she wants to be part of that world, to paraphrase The Little Mermaid. Like,
No, but true.
she wants some of Drew's luster to rub off on her. And she thinks, if I had her looks, her body, her money, her connections, her job, her future, everything would be perfect. As I think we all have at one moment or another looked at someone else's life and thought, if only I had that, then it would all be okay. And then it turns out, you know, we learn as the book goes along that things are far from perfect for Drew, that the life that she's been performing is not the life that she's been leading. And that, in fact, Daphne has some things that she really envies and wishes were hers, including this relationship with her father, who has taught her to love good food and introduced her to like every delicious thing in New York City, and spends time with her. And, you know, there's this sort of like poignancy to Drew's longing for not a material thing, not, you know, not anything anyone can buy her, but just a father who says, I will spend the whole afternoon with you.
Yeah. And speaking of, this is going to lead to a fun question I had. It's not too spoilery, I promise everybody, but there is this really poignant and tender moment that Daphne talks about with this thing that she and her dad does, which is they go and try and find experimental foods and trying them all over New York City. And I'm curious what's the weirdest food you've tried, and did you like it?
Oh my God. That is a really good question. The weirdest food. I've eaten chicken feet at dim sum parlors in New York City.
Ah!
They're very chewy. I cannot say that they were delicious, but I tried them and I wasn't, you know, I was just like, okay, like I'm going for it. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like food becomes the signifier of all of the things that Daphne and her family are willing to embrace and to try and to be respectful about. Yeah. That Drew is just like, why don't these people all learn English and eat mac and cheese, you know? And it's sort of, you know, I never want my books to be political to the point that they're like banging people over the head with how I feel about, for example, sanctuary cities. But yes, if you read between the lines, it's all there. I mean, I think that the way that that Daphne's family interacts with people from other cultures and people who speak other languages is, you know, that was what I would hope my daughters, how they would behave, rather than the way Drew and her family behave. So.
I love what you said. Yes, it's true. You feel that, and you give us these really wonderful flashbacks. I'm thinking again of like Daphne talking about her doing these fun food adventures with her father, and there's, you know, a moment with Daphne that she has in relation to that. And again, I don't want to give too much away, but how did you decide, you know, what flashbacks needed to be revealed to enhance the story? Because you bounce back and forth between the current timeline, and there's a lot going on in the current timeline, but then you pull us back into the past, obviously to give us context, but why did you pick those particular flashbacks, like the scene with her grandmother, or, you know, when they first meet? You know, there's a lot that's in there.
Yeah. I mean, I want the flashbacks to give the book texture and to give the book context. And if the present plot, if the actions that are unfolding in the present is sort of, if that's the main course, then I want the flashbacks to be like the most delicious side dishes that are going to complement it and going to sort of fill in. So I want readers to understand where Daphne gets both her confidence and her insecurities. And so I think that the flashbacks, if I did my job, that's what they tell you about Daphne. They explain to you how she comes from this place of great love and great encouragement and parents who adore her and want the world for her. But then there's this grandmother who embodies a much more old school, toxic view of what a woman's job is. And in Nana's opinion in this book, what a woman's job is to stay thin. And she takes little Daphne to Weight Watchers when Daphne is like 7 years old. And that was hard to write.
I was going to ask because it was really hard to read, which means you did a great job. But for you as a writer having to delve, like, what self-care did you do after writing those scenes?
I think I went and baked something really
good.
Yeah, because it's basically what's happened is Daphne's parents are school teachers and they have to have summer jobs. And so they go to work at a summer camp and they leave Daphne to the not so tender mercies of her maternal grandmother, who basically, as soon as the parents are out the door, takes a trash bag and starts emptying the refrigerator and emptying the pantry and, just filling it with every white flour and processed sugar and everything that she's decided is bad. And it's just, the messages and the way, like you said, that inner saboteur never ever leaves Daphne. So
it's about how she's trained herself to move past that, which I think anyone with loud internal saboteurs, whether it's about your weight, I was criticizing myself earlier for my skin tone, whatever it is, I think unfortunately a lot of women can relate to that. But just again, wanting to applaud you on doing that really well, to making Daphne somebody that anybody could relate to, because even if weight is not your internal criticism, you still can relate to that voice that beats you down, which was really well done.
And I mean, one of the things, like in terms of doing research for the book, like while I was writing it, Weight Watchers, or WW, whatever it's rebranded itself as, they launched this app for kids from like 8 to 12 years old so they can start tracking their food choices, right? And a lot of women on Twitter especially wrote about their experiences of being taken to Weight Watchers as kids and how kids should not be put on diets. It doesn't do any good. It doesn't result in lasting weight loss. It's more likely to leave your kid with an eating disorder than it is or 10 pounds thinner. And a lot of that sort of was the substance of that particular flashback. Like I took a lot of what those women had to say about just how it felt to be like a child in those rooms where women are getting weighed in and they're, they have their little folders where they've written down what they've eaten all week. Like it's a mess. I think like we as a culture need to do a better job of caring for our daughters and giving them better messages.
Yeah, I'm talking and I'm having, but you're talking and I'm having flashbacks to like middle school where they put us on scales in front of the entire school and made us like reveal the weight. And
they still do that. Oh my God. Like it makes me want to stab somebody. Like, why are we still doing this? It's horrible.
Well, I'm really glad for heroines that like Daphne and authors like you that are helping us beat that down with these wonderful books. I want to hop back to, I was talking about going back and forth between the main timeline and the flashbacks, but I want to just jump back to plot real quick and what plotting a story looks like for you, because you do a really great job with elevating the stakes, really following that story plot line we're familiar with. But what does that look like for you as a writer when you're starting a story?
Well, for me, it always starts with character. Like, I know who my main character is. I have some idea of the journey that I want to take her on. I know how I want it to feel at the end of the book. I know how I want it to feel for you, the reader, when you turn that last page. So then it's just a question of like, okay, how do I get from A to B? And this was actually interesting because, so character came first, but setting came next. And that doesn't always happen. Like most of the time, I know my who and I know my what before I know my where and my when, right? But in this, like, so after I finished Mrs. Everything, which was the book that I published last year, like, which had this, like this really, it took place over 70 years. It had this very intricate timeline. It took place in cities where I'd never lived and I had to do a ton of research. And I was just like, you know what? I'm setting this book in Cape Cod because I know Cape Cod really, really well and I'm tired. And, and I wanted to write about Cape Cod because I love Cape Cod so much. And I mean, it's it's so funny. Like I was thinking in my head, there's an election in 2020 and there's going to be so much noise. And I just want to give people a break. And I want to give them a book that makes them feel like they're at the beach. Like they can feel their toes in the sand and a cold drink in their hand and a platter of oysters in front of them. And they can hear the waves and they can smell the smoke from the bonfires on the beach. Like that is what I want to give people. And God, I had no idea how bad we were all going to need that. But, you know,
amen.
I feel really, really lucky that like this is the book that I have to give people right now. Because my hope is that it's going to give people that feeling of being in Cape Cod. Even if you've never been there, I hope that I described it well enough that you sort of feel like you are.
I know that I was salivating for some crab legs when I was reading it. Like there's this like seafood bar during the
wedding
or whatever. It was so, oh yes. And it's true. And so thank you for this gift that you've given us that I'm so excited for people to read as it comes out tomorrow, May 5th. Yay! I want to turn it over to our wonderful viewers that we have here who have been so active in the comments and asking questions. We did get some comments on our Instagram story when we posted that earlier today, so I'll start that off. But then anybody who has questions, feel free to write them down in the comments and we'll pull them out and I'll ask them to you and we'll answer them. But one of the ones that we got on our Instagram was, what are you reading right now?
Oh my God, that is a great question. And I actually, all right.
Visuals.
So one of the perks of being an author and having friends who are authors is, look what I got early, right?
Shut up!
You guys, it's so good. It is.
Do you want to read the title for everyone who might not have seen it?
This is Rodham. This is, I'm covering up her name. This is Curtis Sittenfeld's new book. And for those of you who've read American Wife, which was her imagining of a Laura Bush-like character, this is a book about what would happen if Hillary Clinton didn't marry Bill Clinton. And it's, right? You just got shivers, right? Like it's amazing. And God, talk about prescient, because like, you're reading this book and there's just like, I mean, and it's so great and it's so interesting and it's so thought-provoking, but like there was a piece of me that spent the entire time that I was reading thinking, we could have had that. We could have had that. You know? It's just like, damn, I guess, but it's wonderful. Okay. So this is The Farm by Joanne Ramos. This came out last year. This is the paperback.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
No, I have it. It's on my list.
So good. It's about surrogacy. Okay. It is, it's sort of this like mildly dystopian book. Either that or it's just like current events, you know, and it posits this like Canyon Ranch like facility where this company hires really high end surrogates to gestate babies for the rich and famous. And it follows the story of one of the, it's so good. It's so good. One of the surrogates who's like a Filipina nanny, you know, like just barely scraping by, and realizes that she can make a lot more money for herself and her daughter if she rents out her body. Yeah. And so it's fascinating and I loved it. It was great. So 2 books I'd recommend.
Yay! So exciting. Someone wants to know, what advice do you have for writing during quarantine? Have you done any writing during quarantine? Because you're coming out with a book. So I didn't know what that looks like.
Okay, so I'm going to be really honest, and I'm going to tell you guys that I have not done a lot of writing during quarantine. You know, and some of it is I've been very busy, you know, promoting Big Summer and writing lots of articles and stuff like that. But I have had a hard time like finding the bandwidth to like actually sit down and invent. And I am trying to be very gentle with myself, because that's the advice that people, I'm just like give yourself a break, because we are in this unprecedented time right now. And I don't think there's a playbook for getting through it. And, you know, so for me, it's like, I'm trying to control the things that I can and let go of the things that I can't, and just try to be as present for my daughters as I can, because like as hard as this is for grown-ups, I think if you're a kid or a teenager and, you know, like if you're my age, like a couple of months, it's just like, oh, that'll, that's just a little tiny piece of my life. But if you're my 12-year-old, who's missing 6th grade graduation, this is huge. It just feels overwhelming and scary. So I'm trying, and obviously my housekeeper has not been coming. So I've been doing a lot of sweeping and mopping and laundry, sterilizing various things. So not a lot of writing. Sorry, internet.
I think the advice to be gentle with yourself is a really good one. During this time, we did a live stream a couple of weeks ago with Kali Fajardo-Enstein, and she said very similarly about how are you supposed to write when the world is upside down, and feeling very out of place. That's not where creativity spurs from, so relieving yourself of that pressure, I think, is excellent advice, and reminding us to be gentle with ourselves as if we would be gentle to other loved ones in our life is perfect. So it might not be writing, but it's excellent advice.
I'm all about that self-care. So
perfect. Someone wants to know, what do you think of the audiobook presentations of your book?
I have been so lucky. I have had some of the most amazing narrators in the world. Danielle McDonald of Dumplin' and Patty Cakes did the narration for Big Summer. She's fantastic.
I listened to the audiobook. It was awesome.
Was so good. And so, but like Judith Light did the narration for Fly Away Home a couple of years back, and I got to meet her, and it's just been amazing. I've been so lucky. And, honestly, that is a skill that I do not have. And I know this because I tried to do the narration for one of my books many years ago. And the critics were, they were just like, all the characters sound the same. And I'm like, well, they sounded different in my head.
That's not my fault.
I mean, it is not easy. And I have a lot of respect for people who can do it well. And I've been very lucky. I've had wonderful people.
Yay. Audiobooks are one of my preferred forms of reading, especially nowadays. And like I said, I got it on Libro.fm, which, if you guys don't know, is the audiobook independent bookstore, digital audiobook. And some booksellers get free audiobooks. And Big Summer was one of the ones I got and loved it and listened to it. It was great. So you got a great narrator for sure. Someone else wants to know can you hear me?
So yes, I can hear you. You were a little glitchy, but now you're back. It's all good. Okay. So I love Susan Isaacs. I love Ann Tyler. I've read everything she's written. Sue Miller, who wrote The Senator's Wife, is wonderful. Curtis Sittenfeld, obviously.
Yeah.
Rodham is fantastic. You guys are going to love it. You're going to go crazy. Ellen Hildebrand. I love Ellen's books. I've never been to Nantucket, but I sort of feel like if I ever get there, I'm going to know everything because I've read.
Yes.
Oh my God. Stephen King. I've read everything Stephen King has written. He is, his books are a masterclass for like plot and sort of that propulsive, can't stop turning the pages quality. I loved Laura Zigman's book, Separation Anxiety. Did anyone read that one?
Oh, that's with the dog. The cover with the dog. Yes.
So good. So good. And again, so perfect for this moment of like, everybody's anxious, everybody's stressed, nobody knows what to do, nobody knows how to handle it. And it was such a lovely, like, big-hearted book. I love it.
People are wondering about more movies for your books. Is there anything in the works? Maybe not right now because of the quarantine, but some people are curious if you can give us any hints about it.
Well, I can't announce anything official, but there is something really exciting that's happening, and God willing, I'm going to be able to announce it soon. And that's good news. And sometimes you just have to like wait a while for things to come together. Like I was second book was turned into a movie, and it all happened very fast, and all of the pieces just like clicked right into place like a miracle. And I just sort of figured that was the way it just worked, and it's not. That was a completely atypical situation. And I think that something really great is going to happen, and hopefully I'll be able to announce it soon. So stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Hey, awesome. You guys will have to follow her on all of her social media channels to make sure that you're updated with all of the wonderful news that we're going to get, especially you that asked about the question. Have asked the question about the movies. We're going to take a couple more here. Let's see. Someone asked, would you ever consider writing in other mediums? What excites you about writing novels?
Wow, that's a great question. So the two kinds of writing I do, I mean, I write fiction for adults. I'm working on a middle grade book right now, which is the third book in my Littlest Bigfoot trilogy. So I'm going to finish that story, which I'm really excited about. And I write columns for the New York Times. So like every 3 weeks, I have a column in the paper, and I love those. I love being able to write off the news to like something's happening in the world. And instead of like waiting a year to put it in a novel, I can get it in the paper in a couple days. That's really wonderful. I've tried some screenplays, not so good at that. It's people who can do it well, because it's not, I mean, I think that like when writing is done well, it looks easy. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's like, and it's hard. It's not easy. It is hard.
So you talked about poetry. I wanna ask this question. There's a poem that is read in the book, and I'm curious how that poem entered your life. That's one of my favorite questions to ask authors when they put poetries in like their epigraphs or anything like that. Like, how did the poem that you chose enter your life?
All right. So do you want me to read it?
That would be amazing.
All right. Okay. So I, of course, do not have the version that has, oh, wait, I'm reaching behind me. This is real life. Okay. So here's the hardcover of Big Summer, and the poem's by Stevie Smith, and it is called Not Waving, But Drowning. And it's not very long. So those of you who are like bored already, just bear with me. It's going to be quick.
I promise it's not boring.
Okay. Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much farther out than you thought, and not waving but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him, his heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, 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 it was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving but drowning. So, right. Okay, so not waving but drowning. I mean, I feel like when I thought about social media, and when I thought in particular about the antagonist's feed and the way that she's presented herself and the way that she has performed this, like this charmed, glittering, golden person who never is sad or worried or lonely or excluded, and everything has worked out and everything is perfect. And she's drowning. She is, you know, she is desperately unhappy. She doesn't have love in her life. She doesn't have the things that she wants and longs for. And, you know, I think when you look back through the story, you can sort of see the ways that she is desperately, desperately trying to signal her unhappiness and her desire for, guys, I'm drowning here, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we as women, I think that that's such a universal thing. It's like we're all taught very young, put on the happy face, you know, don't complain, it's unattractive, just suck it up, just get through it. And I think especially sometimes for young women where it's like you go off to college and people are like, oh, it's the best years of your life. Well, what if it's not, you know? Or like,
Sorry.
well, you're going to love your prom. Well, what if you don't, you know? Like, I think that we are in a waving culture and a lot of us are drowning. And that's why I learned that poem. I learned of that poem when I was in college. I took a class in modern British poets. And Stevie was a woman, not a lady Stevie, not a man. And I love a lot of her poems. They're all very sort of like short and jagged and precise and piercing. And that one especially, like, I love it so much because it's so economical. It says so much. And it's just like this gut punch in 3 stanzas. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for giving us that reading. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, if you don't mind a little bit of mom advice, someone wants
Mm-hmm.
to know about having daughters, and if you're worried about the influencers that they follow, and maybe you can talk about raising daughters in this social media environment.
It's terrifying. It's so terrifying, right? Like I am the mom who, like, every time one of their schools has, like, we're bringing in this expert to talk about like bullying on social media or like raising strong girls in an internet culture, like I am in the front row with my notebook, like, writing it all down. I don't know, man. I mean, I got very lucky with my older daughter because she didn't want to be on social media for a really long time. She just wasn't interested in it. And her dad and I decided that when she was ready, the deal was, she could be on Instagram, she could be on Reddit, but she had to tell us her username. And we said, we're going to follow you. We're not going to like look at everything you say, but we're going to like, be paying attention to, in general, who you interact with and kind of what you're doing. But it's really, and then the 12-year-old like lives on TikTok. Like, do I have any TikTok moms out there? Like, she's on that app like 24/7, and it's addictive, and like that's how they get you. Like, it just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls, and it's like dances and
Endless.
funny things, and and every once in a while she'll like show up in my bedroom and be like, what is communism? And I'm like, huh? And she's like, I saw this thing and it is the communism hype house and they are saying about capitalism. And I'm like, all right, well, now we can have a conversation. But I think that, I hope that if you raise kids who have a solid sense of self-esteem and self-regard and know that they are loved and know that the channels of communication are open and they can come talk to you if something happens. But I mean, I just feel like when I was my daughter's age, like sometimes you'd go to school on Monday and everyone would be talking about the great party Saturday night that you feel like crap. And what happens now is the kids can be home on Saturday night watching the party happen on their apps and like seeing the great time that everybody's having. It's hard. And I tell my kids, like, they better not be doing any bullying. Like, I will come down on them like the wrath of God if I find out that they're making other kids feel this way. But I mean, it's really, really tough. And I wish I had better answers, and I don't.
But I think you give us really good answers in your book. I'm going to tie it back around here because I think, we talk about the supportive parents that Daphne has. And, those were some of the most tender moments in the book. And they really shape who this main character is. And I think that you give wonderful examples about those parents and the kind of daughters that they raise and how Daphne still has to go on her own journey. Mm-hmm. And you show us that journey beautifully. And mm-hmm. yet it's the ups and downs, and she obviously has that support system. And mm-hmm. It really is just such a good book. And I know that sounds fangirly, but I really did enjoy it. And we can't thank you enough for this little sliver of happiness and joy and escape to Cape Cod that we get out of this book that is Big Summer. Do you have any last things you want to say to this wonderful group of viewers we've had tonight?
So I hope you guys read it, and I hope that it gives you some pleasure and some escape and some enjoyment. And I'm always on social media. You can find me and tell me what you thought and ask more questions. And, I think if there's a message in Big Summer, it's sort of cherish what you have, cherish who you are, right? And I think, like, we're all stuck at home, kind of like scrolling and scrolling and doom scrolling, somebody calls it. I saw it.
Yes, I love that.
But I think, like, just remember that some of the people who look like they're waving are drowning, like the people who look like their lives are perfect, probably that's not the case. And probably there's something that you have that they want. And so just, find that thing and hold tight. I lost you for a second. Hang on. I think I lost you for a second. Ah. I'm going to give this one more minute because I can't hear you. Can you hear me? No? Okay. Ah. Can you guys hear me? Can anyone hear anything? Ah, okay. You guys can hear me, but not the tattered cover, alas. All right, well, I will just take over, okay? I'm going to tell you guys thank you so much for listening to me talk about Big Summer with you. Book goes on sale tomorrow, and I hope you read it. It's in bookstores everywhere. You can order it from bookshop.org, which is shipping from all of the independent bookstores, and we'll get it to you fast. And yes, we might have to sign off. Thank you guys all so much for coming. This was fantastic. I loved being here with you, and I will be doing this all week at various bookstores. I hope to